It was supposed to be the party of a lifetime. When I got the invite to one of Diddy's exclusive events through a mutual friend, I couldn't believe it. The kind of parties you only hear about. Celebs everywhere, drinks flowing, music shaking the walls of a mansion so massive it felt like another world. But what I found there was something I'll never forget. Something I can't explain. The house stood on a hill, its towering gates gleaming under the moonlight. As I stepped inside, everything felt larger than life. The chandeliers, the laughter echoing through the halls, the perfectly dressed guests dancing as if nothing else existed. But something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it. A strange tension hung in the air. I stuck to the edges of the crowd, sipping a drink that tasted like it cost more than my rent. My friend had wandered off, so I explored on my own. The deeper into the house I went, the quieter it became. The laughter and music faded as I followed a narrow hallway lined with paintings of faces that seemed to watch me. I found myself in a dimly lit lounge with only a handful of people. They weren't dancing or laughing like the others. They were whispering. At first, I thought they didn't notice me. But as I moved to the corner to sit, their heads turned in unison. Their eyes looked wrong, too dark, too sharp. One of them smiled, a tight, knowing smile, and I felt my stomach drop. I wanted to leave, but something kept me rooted. A door at the back of the room caught my eye. It was slightly ajar, and a faint, cold draft slipped through. I could hear a distant hum, like machinery or maybe chanting, but it was so faint I thought I imagined it. The others seemed to ignore it completely, their whispers growing softer, as if they didn't want me to hear. I don't know why I went to the door. Maybe it was the drinks or the uneasy energy in the room, but my curiosity got the better of me. I slipped through the opening, careful not to let it creak. The hallway beyond was colder, the air heavy and damp. The hum grew louder. The hallway twisted and turned, and soon the glitz of the mansion disappeared entirely. The walls were stone now, rough and ancient, like I had stepped into another place entirely. My phone had no signal, and the battery seemed to drain faster with every step. I told myself to turn back, but the humming, it was drawing me closer. I reached a staircase, spiraling down into darkness. At the bottom, faint light flickered, red and orange, like firelight. My chest tightened as I descended, each step echoing too loudly in the enclosed space. The hum turned into voices, low, rhythmic, and unmistakably human. At the bottom, I found a cavernous room. Candles lined the walls, casting flickering shadows across a floor covered in strange symbols. People stood in a circle, their faces obscured by dark hoods. My heart pounded as I realized they were chanting, their voices blending into a single chilling sound. I froze, not daring to breathe. Then one of them turned toward me. Their hood slipped back slightly, and I swear I saw the face of someone I recognized, a famous actor whose name I won't say, but the look in their eyes wasn't human. It was cold, calculating, and wrong. Before I could move, the chanting stopped. Silence fell like a hammer, and every head in the room turned toward me. The air grew heavier, pressing against my chest. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. One of them stepped forward, their movements unnaturally smooth. They reached out a hand, and I bolted. I ran back up the stairs, my heart pounding so loudly it drowned out everything else. The stone walls blurred as I stumbled through the twisting corridors. desperately trying to find my way back. The humming followed me, growing louder, angry. When I finally burst through the door into the lounge, the whispers stopped. The people there stared at me, their faces blank, as if they knew what I had seen. I didn't stop. I sprinted back through the glittering halls, past the laughing crowd, and out into the cold night air. I never saw my friend again. The next morning, I got a text from an unknown number. "You saw too much." I tried to tell myself it was a prank, but the memory of those faces, the symbols, and the chanting wouldn't leave me. I deleted the message and blocked the number, but strange things kept happening. My lights flicker at night. My phone plays static when I try to make a call, and sometimes, when I'm alone, I hear that hum. When my friend told me he got us into one of Diddy's legendary parties, I thought he was joking. Everyone knew about these parties. Celebrities, music, luxury that most of us could only dream of. But there was always something else people whispered about, something darker. I never thought I'd be the one to find out what they meant. We arrived at the mansion around 10. The driveway was lined with cars worth more than I'd ever make in my lifetime. Lights spilled out from every window, and music pulsed so hard it felt like the ground itself was vibrating. As we walked through the massive front doors, my friend gave me a grin and said, "Welcome to paradise." At first, it really did feel like paradise. Gorgeous people were everywhere, laughing and drinking. The music was louder inside, shaking the walls. Every room we wandered into seemed bigger and more extravagant than the last. There was even an indoor waterfall in one corner. I couldn't believe I was there. But then, I started to notice things. The energy was strange. People smiled, but it didn't feel genuine. Their eyes didn't match their expressions, like they were wearing masks. In the middle of a crowded room, I felt more alone than I ever had in my life. That's when I saw the staircase. It wasn't grand or obvious, just a small set of stairs tucked away at the edge of the main hall, but something about it pulled me in. Maybe it was the faint hum coming from below. Maybe it was the fact that everyone seemed to pretend it didn't exist. I told my friend I'd be right back and headed down. The stairs were dimly lit, and the air grew colder with every step. It didn't feel like I was in the same house anymore. The music above faded until all I could hear was my breathing and the faint hum, which grew louder as I descended. At the bottom of the stairs was a hallway. The walls were bare stone, damp and cold. It felt wrong, like I had stepped into another world. But I couldn't stop. I followed the hallway as the hum turned into voices, low, murmuring, almost like chanting. At the end of the hallway was a door. It was old, wooden, and slightly ajar. Light spilled through the crack, flickering like fire. My heart pounded as I pushed it open. The room was massive, and it didn't belong in a mansion like this. It looked like a stone chamber, with torches lining the walls and symbols etched into the floor. A group of people stood in a circle in the center, their faces hidden under dark hoods. They were the source of the chanting, their voices blending into one hypnotic sound. I froze in the doorway, my mind racing. This wasn't some eccentric billionaire's party game. This was something else. Something ancient. Something terrifying. One of the figures turned to face me. I'll never forget what I saw. The face under the hood wasn't human. It looked human at first glance, but its eyes were too dark, its smile too wide, its skin too smooth. It tilted its head and stared at me like it had been waiting for me. I stumbled back, my breath coming in short gasps. The chanting stopped. Every hooded figure turned to look at me. The silence was deafening. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. One of them stepped forward, the symbols on the floor glowing faintly. I don't know how I found the strength, but I turned and ran. The hallway felt longer on the way back, the cold pressing against me like a living thing. The hum followed me, growing louder and angrier. By the time I reached the stairs, it was deafening. I burst back into the main hall, gasping for air. The music had stopped, and everyone was staring at me. Their eyes were blank, their faces expressionless. It was like they knew what I had seen. I grabbed my friend and pulled him toward the door. He resisted at first, but something in my face must have told him not to argue. We didn't stop running until we reached the car. I tried to tell him what happened, but the words wouldn't come out. All I could say was, "We need to leave." As we drove away, I looked back at the mansion. The lights were still bright, the laughter and music spilling out into the night, but I knew I'd never be the same. I never spoke to my friend about that night again. A week later, I got a text from an unknown number. It said, "You shouldn't have gone downstairs." I deleted it immediately, but the memory of that room, those faces, and that hum still haunts me. Sometimes, late at night, I hear it again. It's faint at first, but it always grows louder, and I'm terrified that one day I won't be able to run. They told me Diddy's parties were the stuff of legend, but no one warned me about the shadows hiding in the corners. The kind of shadows you feel watching you, even when no one else seems to notice. I never should have gone. It started when a friend of mine, someone who always seemed to know someone famous, called me up. He told me he had an invite to one of Diddy's exclusive mansion parties, the kind of event people sell stories about for years. I was hesitant at first, not my crowd, not my vibe, but curiosity won. The mansion was breathtaking as we pulled up. Massive iron gates, lights glowing in the trees, the sound of music echoing even from the driveway. Everyone looked flawless as they arrived, like they stepped straight out of a movie. I felt out of place almost immediately, but my friend pushed me forward. Inside was even more surreal. Glittering chandeliers cast soft light over polished floors. Guests holding drinks that smelled like money. I'd never seen so many perfectly dressed people in one place. Celebrities brushed past us like it was nothing. People I had only seen on screens. My friend was starstruck, whispering names to me, but I wasn't really listening. There was something off. I couldn't explain it at first. The laughter felt too loud. The smiles seemed too wide. There was this tension in the air, subtle but undeniable. It felt like everyone knew something I didn't. I wandered through the rooms on my own for a bit. My friend was off networking, leaving me to explore. As I moved deeper into the house, the atmosphere shifted. The music was quieter here. The laughter shifted, replaced by whispers that stopped as soon as I entered a room. That's when I found the door. It was tucked away in the back of a quiet hallway. It didn't match the rest of the mansion, plain wood with a brass handle. No one seemed to notice it as they walked by. In fact, they didn't even glance at it, like it wasn't there. I don't know what possessed me to open it. The hallway beyond was dimly lit, narrow, and cold. The polished floors of the mansion gave way to rough stone, and the air smelled damp. The further I walked, the heavier the silence became, pressing against my ears. At the end of the hallway, I found a staircase spiraling downward. I hesitated, every instinct telling me to turn back, but there was something pulling me forward. The stairs seemed to go on forever, and with each step, the air grew colder. My phone screen flickered in my pocket, then went black. No service, no light, just me and the faint hum growing louder below. At the bottom, I found a door. It was slightly ajar, warm light spilling through the crack. I pushed it open, my heart pounding. The room was massive, like some ancient underground chamber. Candles lined the walls, their flames casting flickering shadows across the floor. A group of people stood in a circle in the center, their faces hidden under dark hoods. They were chanting softly, their voices blending into a haunting melody. I froze in the doorway, unable to move. The air felt heavy, thick, like it was alive. The chanting grew louder as one of the figures turned toward me. That's when I saw their face, or what should have been a face. Their features were blurred, almost like a mask that didn't fit quite right. Their eyes were too dark, like staring into an empty void. They smiled at me, and I felt the blood drain from my body. The chanting stopped. Every hooded figure turned to face me. Their movements were too smooth, too synchronized, like they weren't human. The symbols on the floor began to glow faintly, pulsing with the rhythm of my racing heart. I stumbled back, my breath coming in short gasps. I turned and ran, not daring to look back. The hallway twisted and stretched as I retraced my steps, the cold air biting at my skin. When I burst back into the main hall, the music was deafening again. The guests were laughing and dancing, as if nothing had happened. I found my friend and dragged him outside, ignoring his protests. He said I looked like I'd seen a ghost. Maybe I had. The next day, I tried to convince myself it was just a bad dream or a prank, but when I checked my phone, there was a new message from an unknown number. You shouldn't have opened that door. I deleted the message and blocked the number. But the memory of that room, those faces, still haunts me. I hear the chanting sometimes, late at night, just faint enough to make me doubt my sanity. And I can't help but wonder what would have happened if I hadn't run.